We're going to create a standby database using the command line. We have here the primary, which is Dbvisit 101, and behind we have my standby, which is Dbvisit 102. So have a look at the location of the database files. You can see at the moment, in flash recovery area, there's nothing there, as well as in the database, the data file area, or a data, there's nothing there. And if we look at the services, we can see there's only this service running on this machine, which is rep test. So we currently have no standby running. Now that we have our DDC file in place, we can go ahead and create our standby. So if we move to Dbvisit base, we're going to be using the Dbvisitctl utility. We put in the name of our DDC, and that we're going to create a standby database. So it's going to run some pre-checks. This basically checks to see if there's an existing standby already on the standby server, and some additional checks. The process can actually fail at this stage, so it takes a moment while they communicate between the two. Okay, I'm going to go for 1, create my standby. So we'll accept the default there. On this instance, I'm not going to use transportable media because my database is actually quite small. Transportable media would be where we copy the backup, the RMAN backup from the primary to a transportable media source. We then unplug that source and plug it into the standby, and then we can resume the CSD process at that stage. As the database is quite small, as I said, we're going to just accept the default of no in this case. So it's asking for the temporary location for where we'll store the backup files. So the RMAN backup of our database, which is a small database, is only just over a gig. So the default of C Windows Temp is absolutely fine. So it's also saying on the standby server a temporary location, that's where the RMAN files will be copied to. I'm going to accept again the default, as I know that there's space there. I'm going to say no to the Oracle restart, purely because of my configuration. So it's interrogated the SP file of the primary, and it's just asking if I'm happy with the following init.aura parameters as they appear on as they will appear on the standby. This gives you the option at this stage to edit any of these parameters by choosing number 2. You can change, for example, the DB file recovery dest if that's a different location on the standby server. But I'm going to again go with what's there and accept the default number 1. So this has given me the option to create a template. So in future, an additional option will be made available, which is to create the standby from the template. This is handy if the configuration is quite specific and you make a lot of edits. Then when you recreate your standby, you can just go for that particular template. The default is yes in this case, so I'm just going to accept that. Okay, so now it's going to run some pre-flight checks. And off it goes. Starts by running a backup. So already it's transferred the backup files over to the standby host, and it's restored the standby control file. And it's going to start now restoring these 4 files as well. Okay, that's it completed. As you can see, it always creates a trace file details, with fuller details of the creation. That's based on the process that was run. This is handy when contacting our support team. You can upload this trace file. But let's now have a look on the standby server, which is Dbvisit 102. So if I refresh this, you can see that the service has been created for the standby database. And also here in the Aura data, we can see all our control files. And provision has been made in the flash recovery area as well for the new database.